Morning, Sunday, June 9th, 2024. We are going to say the four immeasurables as we do every week to set our intentions and make aspirations. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Thank you for joining us. So today, I'm going to read a little bit. Victoria marked a section of this book that she likes called, well, I guess it's reversed. It's not good. It's called the Jhanas, Jhanas, by Shaila Catherine, ShailACatherine. I have not read this, but she marked off a section that she thought would be good to read today. Have you had any recent experiences of clearly letting go? They happen all the time, although we rarely investigate the experience. You make a plan in the morning, but a flat tire demands that you let go of your agenda for the day. You might like milk in your tea, but when you don't find any in the refrigerator, you release the desire rather than suffer irritation. A friend might be emotionally distraught and you realize there is nothing you can do to make her happy. Although you care about her and listen, you don't hastily jump in to fix her feelings. You might want to be recognized and appreciated by a colleague, and you only discover relief when you release the desire for that acknowledgement. Notice moments of letting go throughout your day. What feelings occurred with the experience of that release? What burdens would you be happier living without? I'm sure most of us have had experiences like this, and I think the connection we're making to this practice that we do here and why we're here is that being able to have these moments of letting go and release and, from attachment is through mindfulness and awareness, through being able to look at your own mind and see what it's doing, to be able to look at the situation that's happening between you and another person and seeing a bigger picture rather than just your own habitual tendencies and habitual responses, reflexes, reactions, desires, and things like that, and trying to see a bigger picture and other possibilities that may exist in this situation or that may come from this situation. When we're in the grasp of all our habitual tendencies, many of which have taken root throughout our lives and from a Buddhist perspective, maybe through many lives, right? Our minds can really justify these behaviors and these desires and these attachments and these expectations and things. But perhaps those justifications have caused us a lot of pain and caused us a lot of limitations in our growth. Growth is a tricky word, right? I'd rather say like spiritual, progress on a spiritual path, or not even progress, but just like moving on a spiritual path. There are obstacles very often. And there are obstacles that keep us trapped in certain repetitive relationships, repetitive emotional responses, repetitive ways of looking at ourselves, ways of judging ourselves, and things like that. I mean, I don't want to go too far down like a psychological road, but this class is really dedicated towards dealing with the mind, which really ultimately is what Buddhism is about. The practice of Buddhism. Dharma practice is working with our own mind, to move towards liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from these very, habitual responses and conditioned ways of seeing ourselves and seeing the world and seeing our relationships, relationship to the world. How does meditation, which is what this class is, right, or supposed to be at least, how does meditation fit into that? Exactly what we were just saying, to be able to look at, for instance, this quote, right? You might like milk in your tea, but when you don't find any in your refrigerator, you release the desire rather than suffer irritation. So you don't find milk in your tea. You like milk in your tea, but when you don't find it in the refrigerator, that can lead to like resentful anger at your partner. Why didn't they buy it? They saw that the milk was gone. They should be more attentive to me. They shouldn't have used that last drop of milk. And this whole, chain of thoughts and chains of emotional response gets, brought to fruition. When it's much simpler to just releasing the desire rather than suffering the irritation. But to release the desire, you have to just have a moment of pause where you say, okay, it's not there. I can go buy some, I can drink black coffee, I can use some other substitute but whatever, but not take it to that next thing about me and the threat to my well-being and the failure of someone else to be considerate of me. And that takes mindfulness, right? And often we talk about mindfulness being aware of what's going on in our mind, and then awareness also of what's going on outside, right? A really good lesson, and I really don't usually share these things, and I probably shouldn't, but I may anyway. A really good lesson for an actor, right, is that really listening to the other person, really making an effort to not just hear what you want to hear or hear what you think you're hearing, but really making effort. And you don't listen just with your ears, you're listening with your eyes as well, seeing how this person's engaging with you and really listening. Can open up places that you've never explored before. I'm talking just in terms of as an actor, right? It's just something that I do. I just noticed that and recently and made a comparison to that in terms of what we do here, because awareness of the outside world, awareness of situations, awareness of your engagement of others, if you apply that kind of listening that I'm describing, right, that it's really a matter of attention, listening, watching, really trying to make an effort to understand and hear what this person is saying and what they're doing, takes a certain level of openness, attention, mindfulness that really has to be cultivated through meditation. I'm talking about in our life, as an actor, it can be cultivated through repetition and through training and things like that. I'm using it as a metaphor, as an example. But mindfulness also takes the effort of really being honest with oneself, which is very hard to do. Really getting honest with ourselves about why we respond to somebody in a certain way, what our expectations are, and we justify things in very, very clever ways, sometimes in very supported ways. I mean, like these arguments and these expectations and reactions we have very, you have very good arguments and reasons for them. But they're very ingrained, habitual. Often they're very self-centered responses, that kind of limit us to a place that we've been at for a long time. That doesn't necessarily serve us anymore. Maybe never has served us. Maybe it's done the opposite, disservice. I want to read something else. So we talk a lot about the teacher Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, who does a lot of teachings, especially in the last couple of years. Dzongsar, capital Khyentse Rinpoche. If you go on Solidago Productions website, we have a list of teachers and books, and he's on there. But if you go to his YouTube, there's many, many teachings. There's one called Pure Gold that was recorded, I think, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. That's very good. 2 weeks ago, maybe. Very good. He's just one of, I think, just wonderful teacher. If you have a single good thought, never despise it. It is worth a celebration because it is all the drops of water that gets collected and becomes something as vast as the ocean. While we have to aspire to have abundance of good thoughts and actions, don't condemn yourself for only having one single good thought. It takes time to be a good person. It is worth it to be patient. I like that a lot. And that also takes mindfulness. A, to have the good thought, and B, to be patient, to not condemn and think I should be better. I should be thinking like this all the time. These are examples of why we're practicing. Another great quote from Master of the Past, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who was one of the teachers of Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche. This is about devotion. To have no devotion is like hiding oneself in a house with all the doors and shutters closed. The sunlight will never get in. Devotion in the Buddhist perspective, especially Tibetan Buddhist perspective, is a very important concept. And one has to remember that ultimately the devotion is to your own Buddha nature. So you have devotion to your teachers, you have devotion to the Buddha, the one who taught, to the Dharma, the path, to the Sangha, which is your fellow Buddhists, the community of your fellow Buddhists. When you take refuge in the three jewels, those three things: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And in a Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's a lot of devotion to the teacher, to your personal teacher, because without your own teacher, your teacher is in many ways more important than Buddha himself, because it's your teacher that's going to lead you to liberation. That's giving you the Dharma. When we talk about devotion, we're not talking just about blind faith. We're not talking about revering the teacher or even the Buddha as someone above, beyond a human being, as a god or anything like that. And ultimately, the devotion you have is towards your own inner enlightened nature, which, from a Buddhist point of view, we all have. We already have enlightenment within us. We're just obscured by our, you know, habitual patterns, karmic imprints from this and many lifetimes, right? So when you talk about devotion, to your teacher, that devotion is not just like this kind of idealization or idolization. You're really reflecting it towards your own Buddha nature. Your teacher is like the physical the outer manifestation of your own inner Buddha nature. And that's why the devotion is so important. And we're not going even into the concept of non-duality and emptiness, which are, really foundational concepts of Buddhism. We could, but that's a very big topic, and probably Victoria is much more articulate speaking about that. But one of the main points of Buddhism is that the concept of real oneness, and non-duality as the true nature of existence of all things. And that the way we see our own existence and the world around us is from a very diluted perspective, because it's not taking in, not understanding, and not realizing, that ultimate nature of non-duality and shunyata, which gets translated as emptiness in English, which is a terrible translation, I think. But, shunyata has more to do with undefinable fullness in a way, right? Looking at all of reality as this interconnected whole, not looking at us as something separate from anything else, not looking at this body per se as something solid, even on a scientific quantum physical level. We don't exist as something solid. We exist as something energetic, as part of a larger energy field, if you will. And even that energy probably can be broken down into some kind of ineffable non-substance. With that in mind, let's do our meditation practice. So sit either on a cushion, on the floor, on a chair. You can sit cross-legged. If you want, you can sit in a half lotus or a lotus pose, or you could sit in a chair. It helps if your hips are in line or above your knees, however you sit. If you are in a chair, keep your back straight. We sit in this posture, straight back, but not rigid, not like militaristic, but straight and supple at the same time. The neck is straight, but the chin is slightly tilted down. Hands, I do this thing like in the lap, the open left and the back of the right hand, and you leave it in your lap. You can also just put them down on your knees. Some people like to touch the thumb to the ring finger. The important thing is to have a certain amount of tension and suppleness. We always use that metaphor of this guitar string, right? If it's too slack, there's no tone. If it's too tight, there's no tone. If it has just enough tension, then it has tone. So this is kind of the same principle with the body in this position. The shoulders are not back, but they're just upright in a relaxed way. We use our eyes open in meditation. And what you can do is just rest your gaze on whatever's in front of you, not kind of crossed and out of focus and not intensely focused on something, but just resting your gaze on whatever is in front of you. With the mouth, we breathe through the nose in this class, unless you can't, you're congested or something. You can breathe through your mouth. You should keep the jaw relaxed, the lips closed, the teeth apart. The tongue rests between the upper teeth and the roof of the mouth. And then relax into that pose. Um, I'll talk through a little bit of it, maybe a lot of it, while we begin. Breathing through the nose. Focus your attention on the place where the air moves through, in and out of the nose, like where the upper lip meets the nostrils. And just take a minute to notice this spaciousness that can immediately open up when we settle into this posture, breathing, and mental space. Those of you who've done this a while, either here with us or in other places, really rest in that sky-like nature of mind. Really settle into it. And if a thought arises, the key is to become aware of it and then let it go. Not follow it, not judge it, not push it away. Just let it go. We use the metaphor of a perfectly clear, stainless, infinite blue sky being our mind, and the thought is like a cloud that has arisen within it. And when we're aware that that cloud has arisen, we just watch it dissolve and settle back physically and mentally into that sky-like nature of mind. Those of you who are very new, you're placing your attention on the breath again, like I said, where the nostrils meet the upper lip. And the key for you is noticing that a thought has arisen. And the same thing applies. Don't judge it. Don't push it away. Don't follow it. Don't follow its story that it begins. Don't follow the story that, begins with this thought. By that I mean the thought about tonight's dinner with friends. Oh, I'll have to leave the house an hour before and go buy a gift for so-and-so, but she doesn't like chocolate, so I'm going to have to buy flowers, and the flower store's closed. There we go. That's what I mean by following a thought. I'm already going from dinner to the closed flower store in a few quick thoughts. But instead, if the thought arises about tonight's dinner, just say to yourself, back to the breath, and focus your attention again on that place and on that breath. That's all we're really doing right now. And relax and try to think of this as something that you're bringing an ease to rather than a tension and a weight and a struggle. Relax into that open spaciousness of mind, sky-like nature of mind, which is there all the time, always. It is much more of our true nature than anything else, really. If you feel a lot of tension or feel really uncomfortable, don't be afraid to shift yourself, your posture. If you need to kind of reset your posture, that's okay. Just settle back into the pose, settle back into the breath technique. If you find yourself have drifted way off into some story of thought, that's fine. Back to the breath. Watch it dissolve in the sky, back to the sky. Okay. Um, yeah, my chat in the beginning was a little all over the place. Usually Victoria prepares things, but she wasn't able to be here. And I don't know if there's people who've never been here before. Um, I'm not a teacher of Buddhism. Uh, I'm a student of Buddhism, Buddhist. Uh, and this class came out of people who followed me on Instagram requesting meditation instructions, and I asked my teacher Garchen Rinpoche if that was something we should offer on Instagram, and he thought it was a good idea. And it started off as a secular, just meditation, and then people were asking a little bit about the Dharma, and he said it's okay to talk about that if you keep it about the mind, and really just relating my own experiences through my own uh, pursuit or study or path. But we always really strongly say if any of this is of interest to you, to really find a teacher um, and make that the path for yourself. There's again, Solidago Productions website. There's some guidance for that. We're fellow students helping each other out here. Basically, that's what we're doing. I guess we could take a few questions. Teaching meditation is basically teaching some very basic techniques, which is not being a teacher of Dharma or Buddhism by any stretch of the imagination. So just know that. Um, I have been following Garchen Rinpoche for many years, and I still have attachments to financial health and housing security. I'm glad I found your meditation. I often give up on myself. How can I get plugged back in when I'm feeling lost and insecure and avoiding my practice? What baby steps should I take? Well, there's a few components to this. Following Garchen Rinpoche, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Are you a student? Have you taken refuge? You know, um, if you haven't taken refuge and you feel compelled to, maybe you should. And now you don't even have to do that in person. They do that online sometimes, So attachments to financial health and housing security, sure, of course you have attachments to those things. All of us do. Uh, it's I don't think that's something that's going to be eliminated in the near future, and in the immediate future, probably, for me at least. But through your practice, you could lessen the suffering that you yourself uh, give rise to through these attachments, like worrying all the time, you know, um, like for instance, right? So when I was young, I was always broke, basically. And even when I started to work consistently, there's always a feeling that that's going to happen again. And that's just a habitual response and a conditioned thing from the past, right? Of course, anything could happen. I could lose my house tomorrow. A hurricane, an earthquake could knock down my house, and I can be fired from a job, and you can be, your industry goes on. I mean, life is completely unpredictable. Life is, existence is impermanent, and we have to understand those things. Um, and in a way, really uh, not take the moment for granted and really understand that who we have in our life is precious, and that they're impermanent as well. um Maybe understanding impermanence is a way of lessening that the suffering that comes through attachment. But if you can, you might be able to realize the habitual nature of these reactions. So personally, that when that thought comes up again, it's like, oh, that's your habitual response. You're going to get another job. Or, rather than it being so scary all the time, you know, you recognize it as some kind of habitual response to your mind, and then you go back to like, okay, well, what can I do to, what securities do I need, and how can I go about, you know, keeping them in place? But just because we become a Buddhist or start to follow a teacher does not mean all our attachments immediately go away. You're stepping onto a path and you're going to make progress slowly. Um, Now, I often give up on myself. How can I get plugged back in when I'm feeling lost, insecure, and avoiding my practice? Well, showing up today. You did get plugged back in. You were feeling lost and insecure and avoiding your practice, and here you are. I mean, coming to a class like this is part of your practice, setting aside this hour to, do some sitting meditation, to listen to some of the masters, some of the texts that we read from some of the masters, to contemplate your own practice. Um, I mean, I would say to really deepen, if you're following Garchen Rinpoche, to deepen your connection to him, maybe make a bigger commitment to, I don't know where you are in your practice. Have you taken refuge? Have you done the non-dual, the preliminary practices? You can always go deeper into your study with a teacher. You can always, do you have have you taken certain empowerments with him? Do you have, sadhana practice that you can do more often, those kind of things. Um, you know, and just know that avoiding your practice is going to make you more miserable. you know, Sometimes that's what it takes. It's like, okay, just avoiding this and being lazy ultimately is going to make me more miserable. And what do I want to choose today? What do you think about mantras? Are they good in meditation? They can be. I mean, usually I say mantras are something that our teacher gives to us, but there are mantras that can be that people can practice. Um, I think before you do mantra practice, you should have a real solid foundation and just this, calm, abiding, sitting meditation practice that we do here. Often we're always looking for like the higher teaching, the next step, before we've really kind of had a solid ground in certain foundational things. Um, but there's the Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara or Chenrezig. That can be done by anyone and doesn't need empowerment or a teacher. And you can do both. You can do, part of your practice can be just sitting, like we're doing, and then maybe add, some rounds of mantra if you feel. But I really always say that that kind of thing really becomes better when dealing with, working with a teacher. Do you have any tips for keeping a daily meditation practice going, even when super busy and dealing with demanding people? Yeah, the tip. I don't mean to be facetious, but the tip is to keep a daily meditation practice when you're super busy and traveling and dealing with demanding people. You know, is to make that commitment and make that effort. Maybe you're gonna have to do shorter sessions. When I travel, I like to make a little shrine in my hotel room, dressing room sometimes, and that can just be a picture of the Buddha. Usually for me, it's Buddha, Garchen Rinpoche, uh, Padmasambhava, maybe Milarepa, uh, and sometimes a little bronze of Padmasambhava on like a nice cloth. I usually put out a little offering of water or sometimes food every day. Change it every day or at night. You get rid of it. Um, Put that in a corner of the room. It's good to have that there because when you see it in the room, it's more, I think, a little bit more of a motivation to sit in front of it and just, um, you have to budget your time like anything else. I mean, you budget your time to take a shower and to eat breakfast and to make coffee, probably, and maybe exercise. Budget your time better, you know. I think, being super busy, traveling, working, and dealing with demanding people, I mean, a meditation practice is exactly kind of what you need under stress like that. So, you know, don't be lazy. I say that to myself too. I can be very, very lazy, and get caught up in other things. But when I do practice everything, it's always better. Where is a good place for beginners to combat monkey mind, intrusive thoughts? Exactly what we did today. That's why we do it, to work with those. And I think saying monkey mind is I don't know what a monkey mind is, but our minds are really busy and they go from thought to thought. I mean, it's like um who doesn't have a monkey mind besides the bodhisattvas and buddhas? I mean, that's our mind. It's not monkey mind. I really it's that's really, most of us. Um, so instead of kind of making this label that's, I'm deficient and I'm bad, I'm less than human or something like that. No, this is the mind that's been with us, you know, for an incalculable amount of time from a Buddhist perspective. And a moment of release of mindfulness and awareness where we're actually kind of seeing a glimpse of maybe the sky-like nature of mind and its emptiness and its fullness and its infiniteness is a big deal. you know how do you combat that kind of intrusive thoughts and those things? Is by practice, by really making a commitment to this kind of practice. And if you know the stuff outside of just meditation that we're talking about, the readings that we're doing, if they're inspiring to you, making a commitment to a teacher, or to investigate some teachers and to investigate some more Dharma teachings. What is a good way to ease the mind of worry? Remember, impermanence is often a good antidote to worry. I've said this before, but before I was even exposed to, well, before I became a Buddhist, took refuge vows, you know, um, about a year before I kind of went to my first teaching, I was going through an extremely difficult time of my life. Uh, Extreme worry, extreme fear, terrible anxiety, because of a certain problem I was having. And a friend of mine put me on the phone with a Tibetan Rinpoche, oddly enough. And I had no connection to Tibetan Buddhism before this. And she was not even a Buddhist or involved, but she said, maybe this person could help you. And he said, I can't really help you, except just say to you, remember that everything changes. Now, at the time, I can't say how much that actually lessened all the worries I was having. But not too long after that, I don't know, it might have been weeks, maybe a month, not that long, that problem was gone. And when I look back on it now it's 17 years later, it kind of seems absurd that I even worried about it. Because often worry is, you know, I mean, of course there can be, life-threatening problems that, are threatening your livelihood and family and things like that, of course. Um, but very often our mind is a great, like, dramatist and playwright, creates all these scenarios alongside this of possible outcomes and possible other things connected to this one thing, and it becomes bigger in our mind, and it's just this very distorted subjective view of things. So if we remember, impermanence, that this too shall pass, that's another expression, but it's not just a balm, it's the truth. you know Everything is impermanent. I find the term indefinable fullness that you used earlier interesting. Can you say more? um as a human being, we see things through our sense faculty. We receive information, not just see things, but input and information and understanding and all these things through our sense faculties, right? We have these little tiny eyes, right? And I say they're little, like, compared to, like, the sun, they're tiny, right? We have these little ears and nose, this skin. This is how we receive information and impressions and uh, our input. So our view of things, of this vast universe, is from this very, very tiny, tiny subjective point of view. At the same time, because of the truth of shunyata, the ultimate nature of reality, is that there is no duality. There's no me and you. There are just these kind of shifting fields of energy, like I said, that's part of a whole field of energy. If we look at existence in those terms, there's a much bigger picture going on than we usually allow ourselves to see. That's really what I'm saying. When is the next session? We try to do it on Sundays. We've been, very sporadic in the last few months because of logistics, but probably next week. Maybe not. Maybe the week after. We'll see. But I usually post on Saturdays on Instagram about this. How can I deal with balancing the necessary distraction of cell phone, social media, while maintaining a Buddha nature? If you have interest in Buddhism, uh, find a teacher. On the website, there's some suggestions. Uh, there's lots of teachings on YouTube. Um, there's no just, I'm not going to give you some, like, this is how you deal with the distraction of social media. Do this instead. If you're really serious about Buddhism, you have to, you know, tread that path. And the most effective way to do that is to find a teacher and put their instructions into use. You know, put their, apply their instructions. I'm not going to really say more than that because I'm not sure. If you're already doing that, that's a different story. Then maybe you should ask a follow-up question. Both of my parents are dying horrific deaths, and I'm reading Living is Dying. I found the book helpful, but was wondering why Buddhists cannot choose to end their lives via euthanasia if they are in terrible mental and physical pain while dying from a terrible disease. Well, they can choose to do it, but there's, from a Buddhist perspective, suicide is something that is um, seen as an action that can is counter towards liberation. I mean, a Buddhist can choose anything, right? It's what the teaching suggests you do or not. It's not like this is forbidden and you can't do that. It's like this. Every action has a reaction, and in a Buddhist point of view, suicide is something that can often create us is often the result of and can create a cycle of prior incarnations that continue the cycle of suicide. This is a very controversial subject in our, modern world. So we make aspirations and make, prayers that those caught in that cycle, find liberation from it. And that's, that's basically it. That's why they usually choose not to end their lives through assisted or self-inflicted suicide. It's not because anybody wants you to suffer more. It's just that to release ourselves from this samsaric existence, right, which kind of through our attachment perpetuates, rebirth in the six realms, they call it. We have to liberate the mind. Basically, it's because by choosing that route is an acknowledgement of not understanding the truth of our existence. That's my interpretation. Does the book Living and Dying go into it in more detail? I would do some, maybe it does, and I would do some more research about it. But in Living is Dying, they do offer, Zanso Khyentse Rinpoche offers ways of helping, I believe, those who are in that situation or who have taken that decision. This is not a moral judgment. It's actually much more practical than that. Do you have any recommendations for physical establishments, spaces, or communities in NYC that help you connect spirituality, and creativity? No, not really. This person's saying, I feel like New York is a place to be for someone in entertainment, but I feel a huge spiritual void. It feels very materialistic and commercial. Do you have any recommendations for physical establishments, spaces, or communities that have helped you connect with your spirituality and creativity or artistry? I mean, if you want to connect with your spirituality, I mean, we do it through Buddhism here. So I would say there's a place in Brooklyn called Shantidevi. What's it called? Shantidevi House, I think. And they seem to be, I haven't not been there myself, but they seem to have been Shantideva Center in Brooklyn. They have been getting a lot of good teachers there. I would look into that. Taking refuge. What is taking refuge? That's a really good question. In some ways, taking refuge is the official ceremony, if you will, of becoming a Buddhist. You take refuge. Basically, you're taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the teaching, the Buddha, the one who taught, the Dharma, the teachings itself, the Sangha, the community of fellow Buddhists, until you reach enlightenment. Because you're not enlightened, and we don't see and live through the ultimate truth, our own, the ultimate, our true nature. Because we don't live through that, we take, and we're not liberated into that, because we haven't realized that, we take refuge like a shelter in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And quite literally, they're vows, refuge vows that you take, and a teacher will give you them, and you repeat them, and after you say those things and really make a commitment to those things, taking refuge in this is going to be my path until I am a realized being. That's taking refuge. I can't often meditate first thing in the morning, and then when I do meditate later in the day, my mind's all over the place. I still do it, but it feels very different. And not as dedicated. My attention is less. How important is doing meditation first thing in the morning? I usually don't meditate first thing in the morning. Victoria likes it because everything's quiet, and it's kind of going right from sleep into that. For her, it's a really smooth transition before like all the thoughts of the day go in. So, I mean, if you can't meditate first thing in the morning, then you can't. I mean, if you can and find a way, and it's better, then do it. But your mind is all over the place naturally. That's kind of what it does. So, as long as you're doing it, I think it's okay. And if you find that you really want to do it first thing in the morning, then find a way. How can I use meditation to deal with an interpersonal romantic issue? I find it easier to meditate to deal with financial issues. Very difficult to meditate to deal with overthinking, mixed signals, etc. Mm. I was talking about us making commitment to being more honest with ourselves, and that's an area where you have to do that, um, especially in romantic issues. projection and expectation, those things kind of become very big. And certainly meditation can help you to just try to slow down the speed of how you're receiving receiving that information, how you're processing it. And it's hard for me to answer that without knowing more details about your practice, but the fact that you're asking this question, the fact that you're saying you find it difficult to meditate, to deal with overthinking over mixed signals is really good. The fact that you even know you have overthinking and overthinking and there's mixed signals, the fact that you even know that is very positive. Where we really get into trouble is when we're convinced that our thoughts about this person and our judgments about their behaviors is concrete and defined and exactly how we see it. So the fact that you're asking this question already shows that there's a crack in the fixed habituation that maybe you've always defaulted to in the past. The fact that there's a desire to deal with overthinking and these mixed signals is really important and positive. Okay, thank you for today. Thank you, our producer Nick Solidio, who without his kindness and generosity, we would not be able to do this. And once again, I'm a student of Buddhism. Someone's on that path. I'm a very deluded, small-minded human being, like a lot of us, most of us maybe. If any of these topics are of interest to you, especially the ones that are a bit more confusing or disturbing, like what we were talking about, suicide, things like that, I really encourage you to follow up on connecting with some teachers, either through their YouTube or through books or in person. My job here is really maybe to teach a little bit of meditation technique, and more so maybe just to steer you towards authentic teachers from authentic lineages. And we have lists of them on the Solidago Production website. Thank you. Let's dedicate the merit from today's session to the benefit of all beings. By this merit may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusion. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. See you soon.